everybody. Welcome. Hello, hello.
Welcome, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. We're so excited to have you here. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Yeah, where's everyone coming from? Has anyone already like learned to knit flat and now they're learning to knit in the round?
Let
Or is
us
everyone
know.
just kind of starting off?
We're going to give it a second for people to get settled and join us. So say hi in the chat. Let us know where you're coming in from. We'll get started in just a minute.
I always say knit friends are the best friends,
Oh,
and
they so
we're
are.
all friends today.
Yes.
Okay, learning to knit in the round. Perfect.
Awesome. Hello from Michigan. Aw. So excited. You guys are all here with us. This is a great time to learn how to knit today. Ooh. If you're just joining, welcome. Hello. We're going to get started in just a minute, giving it a second for everyone to get settled, get cozy.
Representing Maryland. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah,
All right.
I'm so excited. This is a great first project just for anyone who hasn't even like accomplished anything yet. We are going to show you how to accomplish it. We
Yep.
are going to get you all set up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hello,
and
hello.
just a heads up, if anyone has any questions, make sure that you send them to the chat, but make sure you're sending them to everyone, not specifically to just one person. So not straight to the hosts, just because we might miss your message if you send it straight to us, since we'll be kind of like talking and like demonstrating things for you guys. So we just don't want to miss your messages. And our team members are going to be gathering all those questions.
Yeah.
Ooh, I see
All
people
right.
loading. Coming
Hello,
from
hello.
Austin, Texas. You're close. I'm in Texas too.
Hello, hello. Awesome. All right.
There we go.
I
Awesome.
think we should go ahead and get started. People trickle
Yeah.
in over time, but let's go ahead and add some spotlights here and we can say hi and get started. So bring everyone up here. All right, did I get everybody? Oh, no. Gabriella, where'd you go? Did you add a spotlight?
I'm right here. I'm just waiting.
There we go. All right.
There we go.
Well, perfect. We're all here. Well, hello, everyone, officially. We're so glad to have you here. Thank you for joining. This is our Learn to Knit a Cowl Kit Zoom in It. We'll be talking about this exciting cowl project today, learning to knit in the round. My name is Margaret. I'm the social media and outreach coordinator at Purl Soho, and I'm joined by my co-host today, Gabriella from the customer service team. And then our moderators, Jaja, Kat, and Lily, they'll be helping out in the chat. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in there. We'll make sure you get an answer one way or another. But yeah, thanks everyone for being here.
Yes, yes. And also too, don't feel like if you miss something here that you're going to have to wait until the video comes out. Although we are recording it, you will be able to access us anytime. 7 days, just email in and we set up one-on-one Zooms and all that good stuff. So we will help you through the process, get you back on track if you forget something.
Yeah. This is a really great first project. If you're new to knitting, if you're new to knitting in the round, these cowls are so cozy, so fun. They're very rewarding to knit. They're great gifts. The kit is a great gift. It's just so fun, and it's like I said, a really rewarding project. We wanted to extend a special welcome to anyone who is learning to knit for the first time with us today. Feel free to say hi in the chat. Let us know if this is your first time ever knitting. It's a very special moment. We're so excited you decided to join the knitting crowd. So yeah, say hi in the chat if that's you. But for the Zoom, it'll be about 30 to 45 minutes. Today, we'll be covering everything from binding or from casting on to binding off. So all the actual knitting that takes place over the course of the cowl. And then we'll have some time at the end for Q&A if anyone has any questions that require a demonstration or a more extensive answer. So feel free to put those questions in the chat if you have them. Yeah. I think that covers everything. We're recording this. I think we mentioned that. Yep, it'll be available on our YouTube channel in about a week or so after today for you to reference, and we'll have timestamps so you can go right to the part you need. But if you prefer not to be recorded, we completely understand. You can turn off your video and mute yourself. No worries, it's all good. But yeah, Gabrielle is gonna get us started, showing us how to cast on and make some stitches. So take it away,
let's
Gabriella.
start it.
I'm gonna-
Okay, so the first thing to note is that all of my yarn is already wound. So if you see it and you're like, mine doesn't look like that, that's totally okay. When you get your kit, it's going to be in skeins and then you have to wind it, but we have instruction for that and we also have tutorials. So in the chat, actually, we're gonna go ahead and link how to wind by hand, or if you already got a head start and got a winder, then we'll have a tutorial how to do that as well. Okay, let's go ahead and
I will add that learning how to wind by hand is a really essential skill for knitting because you'll most often get your yarn in skein formation in a skein, and you'll want to be able to wind it into a ball so that you can knit with it and use it. So it's a really important skill to have, and our tutorial walks you through every step. So there's no tangles or knots.
Yep, all right. I'm gonna switch over to my overhead camera. I just have a little ball of yarn here. So the first thing you're gonna want to do is you're always gonna start off with a slip knot. So I just have my tail end here, and then my working yarn, my ball of yarn over here. So I don't need my needles quite yet. I'm just going to make a loop with my yarn. So here's my tail on this side, on my right side. And now I'm going to bring a strand underneath. So it's just crossed. I'm sorry, there we go. A strand underneath, just like that. And I'm going to pull it through. And you'll see that it just kind of like tightens up. You'll just pull those strands. And at that point, you are ready for your needles. And it might not be the size you need right away. So you'll just take your needle, insert, and then you can kind of pull these tails just apart and that'll tighten onto your needle. You don't want it too tight, just tight enough that way it moves up and down your needle. Okay, let me actually do that once more. So I'm just kind of making a loop. And then I'm going to take my yarn underneath and pull it through. Okay, let's get started casting on. Get situated here. Okay. So I have my tail towards me and then my ball of yarn, which is my working yarn, on the opposite end. So I'm going to take my thumb and my index finger and put them in the middle, while I'm also using my bottom fingers to grasp. So you can grasp them first, and those two fingers, thumb and index, and you're just going to make kind of like a slingshot. If you see the slingshot method, it's the same as long tail cast on. It has different names, so just don't get confused when you see that. All right, so we're just going to cast on a few stitches. So we're going to start by coming underneath that loop on our thumb, over the strand on our index finger, and then back through that loop on our thumb. And then we can go ahead and let it go. And we'll just tighten it up. Don't tighten too tight. Remember, you want your stitches to be able to move up and down your needle. So let's do that again. So I'm just grasping my yarn, taking my two fingers, inserting into a slingshot. And now I'm going to bring my needle under first part of my loop, over my index finger, and then back through the loop on my thumb. All right, let's do that a couple more times. All right, and you'll see that we have now cast on 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Technically, our slip stitch counts as a stitch. So just remember that when you're counting, you'll count all the loops on your needle. And just the way that we use our fingers to tighten up that slip knot, you'll do the same thing when you're casting on. Okay, at this point, you'll want to stop when you've cast on the same amount that's listed in your pattern. There are two different sizes, so just remember that number. A little tip is I like to count by twos when I have a lot of stitches, and then I'll just, if it's a lot, I'll just use my calculator. That way it just kind of goes a little bit faster. Instead of 1, 2, 3, I'd count 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 times 2 is 8. All right, so after we've cast on all of our stitches, let me go ahead and pull out my other little swatch here. So sorry about that. My little pup is hearing the door.
I don't
Okay.
think we can hear it. It's okay, Gabrielle.
Okay. Okay, so I have casted on the amount of stitches that I need for the cowl. And I'm not going to start knitting in pattern right now. I'm just going to be showing you the knit and purl stitches. So once you cast on your stitches, you'll have some that's coming from your working yarn and your tail. And you just want to make sure that your stitches are not twisted, meaning that you want them all to be towards the inside. And I know you can't see the whole thing all in the frame, but that way they're all laying flat and they're all going the same direction. So for example, you don't want some of them to be kind of going this way. All right. So first step is you're going to take your stitch marker and you're going to mark your beginning of your round. So since we're working with circular needles, we're working in the round. I'm just going to go ahead. Oh, let's see. That's my tail. Get situated.
I'll say in the meantime that marker to mark the beginning of round is something you'll slip from your left needle to your right needle in the following rows or the following rounds. It's never something you knit into your fabric. It's just a reference point for you to, as you see it, you just slip it and keep on going.
Yep, you'll notice each time you get there, okay, I just completed a round.
Oh.
Okay. Another thing I wanted to point out is that you'll notice your stitches are a little bit more difficult when you get started. That's completely normal. And that's the reason that you want to make sure to cast on loosely, but it's fairly normal to have a little bit of difficulty for that first round. So don't be alarmed if you start your next project and you're like, it's way too tight. Okay. So we're going to start with just the knit stitch. And to join in the round, you simply will just start knitting from the other side. So I'm going to insert my needle. And then I'm going to bring my working yarn from the back and around. And now I'm going to use my needles, my two hands, to pull that loop through. All right, let's do that again. Insert our needle. Bring our working yarn around. And then I'm going to pull it through. Just like that. And there's two. And now you can see that that stitch marker is kind of locked in place until we get back to it. Let's do a couple more of those together. Insert my needle. Bring my yarn around and pull it through. Insert my needle. Bring my yarn around and pull it through. And each time you create a stitch, you'll notice that the fabric gets just a little bit longer on your right side. So you can tell even just from right here that this fabric is just the teensiest bit longer than my cast on stitches here. Okay, so the opposite of a knit stitch is a purl stitch. And I'm going to show you how to do just a few purl stitches. So whenever we're knitting, that yarn is in the back. And since we're doing the opposite, we need to bring the yarn to the front, just like that. And now we're ready to work some purl stitches. It's a little time. Let me move my stitches over. Okay. So now, instead of going in this way, I like to think of like two birds kissing. So I like to go through the front, just like this. And with my yarn already in the front, I'm going to wrap my yarn around and pull it through, just like that. So again, like if my needles are kissing like birds, insert my needle, wrap my yarn around, and now I can pull it through. Let's do that a couple more times. Insert in the front, wrap my yarn around, and pull it through. So as you can see, your needles are working together to create your stitches. Let me try to do this without my big old hand getting in the way. Okay. I'm inserting my needle. There we go. Wrap my yarn around, and using that other needle, I'm just going to pull it through, and I'm transferring it over. And that is how you do the knit and purl stitches. So let's just have a look at these really quickly. You can tell that they look slightly different. The purl stitches have a little bump. I like to remember that those are pearls, like a little purl, little bump in the front. And then our knit stitches are just right here. So that is how you knit and purl. And now I'm going to actually pass over to Margaret, and she's going to show you what happens when you combine the stitches, which is what you'll do in the cowl.
Yeah. Thank you, Gabrielle. That was beautiful. So in the cowls that we're making, the pattern calls for you to knit 2 stitches and then purl 2 stitches. So I'm going to show how to move between knits and purls as you go through a single round. So I'm going to switch my cameras around real quick and demonstrate that for you. All right, here we are. So I have a cowl that I've been knitting just a little bit, and you can see my beginning of round marker is right here. And I've knit the first 2 stitches of my round. I'm working on a repeat of round 1, which says knit 2 and then purl 2. And the next step here is for me to purl 2 stitches. So Gabriella just showed this a little bit, but I'm going to go a little bit more in depth here of just how to transition from knitting this stitch right here to purling the very next stitch. So you always want to move your working yarn to be to set yourself up for the stitch you're about to knit. So it's not so much about what you just did, it's about what you're about to do. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go from a knit stitch to a purl stitch. So I'm going to take my working yarn, which is coming off the back of my work because we just knit, and we're going to move it between the needles to the front of the work, just like this. Just like that. Something to watch out for here is you don't want to move your working yarn over the needle, because that will unintentionally create a stitch and your cowl will become like V-shaped. You'll add more stitches and it'll throw off your pattern. So that's a great troubleshooting thing. If you're like, oh my gosh, what happened here? You probably just put the yarn over your needles. So what you want to do is, sometimes it helps to move your needles parallel to each other and just move it to the front, just like that. So now I have my working yarn in the position that we need to purl. And I go ahead and purl the next 2 stitches. So insert my needle, wrap my working yarn around just that front needle, and then pull it through to the back, and then slide that stitch off. And do that again. Just like so. And now we've knit 2, purl 2, and it's time to knit again. So when we are knitting, we like to have our working yarn in the back of the work. So pick up our working yarn, we'll move it between the needles to the back of the work, just like that. And then we can go ahead and knit. Knit 1 stitch, knit the 2nd stitch, just like that. So that is the little cadence you'll follow as you go throughout your cowl. So here I am purling. And then we'll switch again, back, just like so. one thing that's super helpful is sometimes the time might come where you have to put your knitting down for a second and go do something else. And when you come back to it, you might say, oh my goodness, where was I? What was I doing? Which stitch is next? So I wanted to show, like kind of zoom in here in case that situation applies to you. So here we are. We're going to always look at the stitches on our right-hand needle because those are the stitches we just worked. The stitches on our left we haven't worked. And you can always tell which needle is supposed to be your right-hand needle because that's where the working yarn is coming off of, even if it's in the front. So we're going to look here, and like Gabriella pointed out, we can see these two little bumps here right underneath the needle. Those are purl bumps. And then we can see little V-shaped stitches. See the V's right there and right there. Those are knits. So we have 2 purl right here, 2 knit, 2 purl, 2 knit. Very helpful to know when you're coming back to work. So in the cowl, like as a whole, let me switch back to my other camera real quick. I wanted to talk about how this like pattern comes to be. So you'll cast down the desired amount of stitches for the size that you're making, whether it's the small or the large. And the cowl is just 2 rounds. So it's the first round, the second round, and then you repeat that all the way up. So it's round 1, round 2, round 1, round 2, round 1, round 2, so on and so forth for 10 inches. There's a special little trick in the second round. So the first round, knit 2, purl 2, easy peasy. We can keep on going. Lots of good practice for knitting and purling. Perfect. The second round, you have to purl the first stitch and then begin your usual knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2. That first purled stitch helps to offset the pattern just slightly to make what we call mistake rib, which is why this has this fun pattern and like kind of squishy texture to it, is because of that offset first stitch. A good way to think about it is like like bricks in a wall. Like the second layer will be covering that seam where the first 2 were. So it's just offset by 1. And then the next round you go knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2. You can say it in your head as you go. But that's how the cowl comes to be. And you just knit for 10 inches. At some point along the way, you might need to add, or you will need to add a second ball of yarn. So let me show how to do that. Switch on over. Here we have a green cowl that I've been working on. And the time has come to add a new ball of yarn. We're going to pretend that that's all I have. I would cut this tail to be about 8 to 10 inches long. You're going to want enough of that tail left to weave in later to secure that end. So I wouldn't cut super short. I would go much longer here. But I've been working around on this cowl. You know, I've been doing knit 2, purl 2, and I've come to the point where I need to be done using this yarn. Actually, it just occurred to me you wouldn't have to cut your yarn because you'd be running out at the end of your ball. So you would just leave about 8 to 10 inches and then continue on. So to join a new ball of yarn, I'm going to take a new strand here, a fresh strand. We have our tail right here. I'm also going to leave about 8 to 10 inches of this one so that I can weave that in as well. So I have all of this right here. And I just like to loop this around my finger, nothing fancy, just to kind of help create that stitch. And I always recommend joining a new ball of yarn on a knit stitch. That way our tails will be at the back of the work. This is the right side of the cowl, like the part that the whole world sees. And then the back side of the cowl is called the wrong side, the side close to your neck. And when you create knit stitches, the tails lay to the back. So I wanted to, keep those there so we can hide them and conceal them later. So I've just purled this stitch right here, and I'm going to insert my needle, my right needle, onto this next stitch, which is a knit stitch, just like so. And using my new ball of yarn here, I'm going to just loop that around. So I'm holding on to both ends of this yarn. You can see the tail that I'm leaving to weave in, and then this is my working yarn. I'm holding on to both just so that it doesn't slip out of my grip here. And then I'll just continue knitting that stitch. So it's really simple. You just wrap your new yarn around and there you go, you're off. So Now I can kind of let this one go because it's secured, and I can just resume using my working yarn and continue around. So that's how you add a new ball of yarn. And then should the time ever come to stop knitting, I wanted to demonstrate how to bind off. So to bind off, that is the way in which you stop knitting. It's just like when you learn how to ice skate, just as important to learn how to go it is to learn how to stop. So
Raise your hands a bit and
Yep.
maybe zoom out.
I'm
There
just
you
going to
go.
get to the beginning of my row here. So here we are at the beginning of my round. I'm going to slip this. It doesn't matter, but I'm going to slip that just so I have a place to identify. And let me zoom out just a bit. The whole process of binding off is really just working with 2 stitches and moving the first stitch up over the second stitch. So to begin binding off, we slipped our stitch marker, and I'm going to begin binding off on a repeat of round 1. So knit 2, purl 2. What we're going to be doing here is binding off in pattern, which means that we are going to be knitting 2, purling 2 as we go around and working with those stitches as we bind off. In another example is knit 3, purl 3 would be binding off in pattern if that was the pattern we're following. But for us, knit 2, purl 2 is the way to go. So I'm going to knit the first 2 stitches so that we have 2 stitches to work with for binding off. And now what I'll do is we're going to bind off 1 stitch. And the way to do that is to take the tip of my left needle, and we're going to just pick up the front leg of this first stitch. Just picked it up, and we're going to slide it up and over that second stitch, just like that. So you can see that this stitch is laying across this second stitch. Now I only have 1 stitch on my right needle. We need 2 for binding off, so I'm going to move my working yarn, and I'm going to purl the next stitch. Ooh, since we're binding off in pattern. Now I have 2 stitches again, so I can insert my needle there, pick up that first loop. Sometimes it helps to hold onto this working yarn just to secure that stitch, and move it up and off. And you can see that we have 2 stitches bound off there. 1, 2. And as we continue around, this space where the stitch marker is will begin to grow, because these stitches, as we work around here, we'll subtract 1 each time, and these stitches will still be there for us to bind off. So let me demonstrate that one more time. We're going to knit we're going to purl the next stitch. This is our 4th stitch so far in this round. Then I'm going to insert the tip of my left needle, pick it up and over, just like that. And then we'll go back to knitting, moving our working yarn around. 1, slip that up and over. There we go. And then we'll knit the second stitch. And move that up and over, just like so. So here we go. There's the top edge of our cowl. Pretty cool. We do have, oh, go ahead, Jaja. Do you have something to add?
Devil's advocate. I don't know. I think we might have time for this, but can you show people why it's so important to keep your finger on that edge by basically accidentally letting go and seeing?
Yeah.
This is common. I just want people to see what happens if you happen to like let it go before binding off and they're just kind of loose and you're panicking. Just
yeah. I'm going to demonstrate this with a knit stitch next, just for ease here. So I think you're referring to this finger right here that I'm. Is that what you're suggesting, Jaja?
Or actually, you know how like you're using your left finger to make sure it doesn't fall off?
Oh, I see.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
if I didn't use that,
it's pretty
nice.
common.
Yeah, it's nice to really secure these stitches. I'm holding these stitches on the needle. That's a really good call out. I'm going to pick that up. Holding these stitches here keeps everything in place. I have tension on this stitch right here. That way you have a lot of control, or maybe not. You have a lot of control on that stitch as you
I
Slip it up and
really
over.
want it, because if you don't, it'll just both will
Yeah.
pop.
And that's a really good tip for just any knitting that you're doing in general here. It's nice to be able to control where these stitches are. You know, a lot of where my hands are on both of these needles are being mindful of keeping these stitches in place. Which is like something you learn as you get a feel for it, as you practice more and more, as you work your way through the cowl. Because, you know, it's just a new like muscle memory to learn. So, yeah, it's nice to be able to hold these stitches as you go. And if
Yeah,
you
I
have,
remember when I started knitting, I was just very tightly
yes,
keeping everything in place so it would not fall over.
yes,
And that's okay. You'll loosen up
keeping
eventually.
keeping your stitches loose to slide along the needle is really important, just like Gabrielle was saying too. Yeah, but that about does it for our demonstrations. I did want to mention one other thing, and that is what to do with the darning needle that comes with your kit. We do have a tutorial for this. You're going to use this to weave in those ends. So, for example, in my green cowl here, there's this tail, also called an end, that we need to weave in just to secure it and hide it and just get it all taken care of. That's what you'll use this for. We recommend following our tutorial for that. And if you have the pattern in the kit, there's a demonstration in there as well. This is also a really useful tool for when we added our new ball of yarn. Over here, you can use your darning needle to weave these in. Oh, and a little note here. There is a hole that appears when you join a new ball of yarn. That's completely normal. That's the beauty of weaving in ends. Like sometimes I'll cross these and weave this one in that way and this one in that way, just to kind of close that gap. But that's totally normal, so don't be alarmed. And then the other finishing technique is blocking. So for me, when I knit, my knitting goes with me everywhere. I'm going and waiting in waiting rooms. I'm in public transportation. I'm just out in the world, and you need to wash it. And it's also has a little bit of magic to it. The process of blocking, it helps all of the stitches get nice and cozy in their new shape. And it really improves the drape of a lot of fabrics, and it helps conceal any like inconsistencies with stitches and all that good stuff. It also helps to like trap in your ends that you wove in. We have a tutorial in a link to the tutorial in the chat for that as well. And that's not an essential part of this process, but it is a great resource to have as you continue on in your knitting journey. But yeah, if we have any questions, let's go ahead and get to those. Oh, I see a really good question from Jessica. Can you give some tips on how to recover from dropped stitches? Yes. So I should have prepared a swatch for that. That's such a great question. When I believe, do we have a tutorial for that? I believe we do. No? Okay. We do not.
I don't think so.
Yeah, here we go. The best thing I can recommend is if you have a crochet hook, to grab that, and you'll want to essentially like crochet your dropped stitch back up through the ladder of your stitches. We might have some more resources available at customer service at purlsoho.com to help further explain that process. But using a crochet hook or some kind of hooked like repair hook we have in our Knitter's Brass toolkit to help bring that dropped loop back up like the ladder of your stitches. That's the best way to do it. And you can also use the surrounding stitches to help you decide, should that be like which way should that go through the fabric, through the back, through the front. And learning how to pick up drop stitches is a really great resource to have as you continue on, because it will happen. It'll fall off your needles when you don't mean to. So
they just sneak right off.
Yes.
You just close your eyes and they just sneak right off.
Yep. Yeah.
Like,
Sometimes.
Like Margaret mentioned, we do have resources for fixing your drop stitches. Also, too, we've done one-on-one sessions just for your specific fabric. So don't ever feel like it's the end of the world. We have resources. We are here to keep you on track.
Yep. to pick you and your stitches up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh.
Do we have any other questions that,
Oh, I wanted to talk about the one-on-ones, just
oh, okay, yeah.
just a little bit more. I put them in the chat, but just like you guys said, that's the best for specific to your pattern. Because then you can demonstrate it just like we are over Zoom right now. You can even save a recording. We've done that all the time, so you can reference it later. And every member on the team has a document camera. It's completely free. You can book it through that link. And that way we can see where you are in your pattern and we can demonstrate, because I'm sorry, we weren't prepared for this in real time, how to use a crochet hook to pick
Right.
it up a knit stitch or a purl stitch, or if you're alternating like this pattern, because it can be a little difficult to identify what's what.
Yeah.
So one I think would be the best for that. So you can get some special time just for you.
Yeah. You can always send a picture of your work to us too and just be like, wait, what happened here? I'm not sure what happened. And we can take a look.
We've seen, I don't want to say it all, because again, we've seen a lot.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot. And it's really funny because if we, like, let's say I don't know the answer, someone on the team does.
Yeah.
And we can reach out to even other people on our team, our warehouse team. Hey, who's done this before? Can you help me? And then we will learn it to be able to help you. So
Yeah.
we got you covered.
I know there were a couple questions earlier about how much of a tail to leave when casting on with the long tail cast on. I think there are two answers to this question. One is just based on vibes, just guess and hope. And then the other answer is, I think we put it earlier up in the chat, of like a specific formula you can measure, how much you're casting on, and then you do a little conversion to figure that out. I'm sure there's like calculators and all that stuff, but I like to go with just a substantial amount of yarn. You can always cut any excess and bring it back and use that as you're going, should you need it. I just like to be very generous and give myself just a ton of yarn, and whatever I use, and if I need more, I just chop off that and I add it back in and we're good to go. So I would say like a wingspan is like a good, like, start there, just to get a substantial amount of yarn. So
the example that I used earlier, I used the width, but in this case for the cowl, it would be a circumference.
yeah.
So I'm not sure at the top of my head what the circumference is for both sizes, but you would use that general times 3 and then add a little extra for your tail.
Yeah.
And always a little extra is better than not too much, because if it's not enough, you have to restart regardless.
Yes. Yeah.
Learn from my mistakes.
Yes.
Learn from my mistakes.
Yes. Yes. It's always better to have more when you're casting on, because especially when you start getting to sweaters or blankets and you're like, okay, 300 stitches, we have to go. Like, it's useful to just give yourself that extra wiggle room there. So yeah.
Save future self.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Did we have any other questions though, or was that about it?
No, that's about it. And don't forget, if something else comes up, you can email us. So
Yep.
we are around and we do our best to respond to all emails within 24 hours. Sometimes things take a little bit longer, but we'll follow up and let you know, hey, we're still looking into this. So we are constantly available 7 days a week, and we are here to help if anything comes up. I know I usually forget things being put on the spot. If anyone says, do you have any questions? I'm like, no, I'm fine. And then I'm like, I should have asked this. Just email us in and we will do our best to help you.
I just had one question come in now.
Yeah, that's a great question that just came in. Do you have tips for when the purls and knits aren't aligning in the pattern? I'm going to switch over my document camera to show that real quick, which means I'm going to remove these spotlights real quick just so we can see nice and big. Another great question. So in our, we have a full cowl here. In this pattern, this stitch pattern is called mistake rib, which means it's made to look like you've made a mistake. Hang on, let me just, there we go. Put back around, there we go. So in this, you can see that there's this nice central column of V's. I wonder if this color would be a little bit better. Oh, look at that. That's beautiful. Oh my goodness. Okay. This nice like stripe of V's here is where the knits and purls kind of stack on top of each other, and it's repeated on the back. So right in this little ditch on the front is where you see this nice central column here. So one easy way to tell if you're on the right track is if you're seeing this nice central column of V's, and there's kind of like a nice little wave to this to your work. If you're not seeing that, I would go back and look at the stitches that you've just worked most recently and just make sure, okay, do we have, all right, there's two knits right there. Okay, we got 2 purls, you know, because it's really easy to just say, okay, this was just a knit one on accident and we skipped one, you know. So I would just go back and what you've most recently done, just make sure everything looks good. If you need to undo anything, it's quite simple to do. You just unknit the stitch. So this is undoing a knit stitch right here. Put our left needle back in and pull that needle out. Just if you need to undo anything. But yeah, the best way is just to check your work, see what's going on underneath your needles and make sure it's all looking how we wanted it to look. If not, you can kind of retrace your steps and see where things went a little different. I see another question, will there be a right and wrong side to this cowl? Yes, in functional terms, but no in reality. So the right side of the cowl is just the side that's out, facing outward. So the cowl you see when someone, or the side you see when someone's wearing this. The wrong side is just inside, but both of the sides look identical. It's just what's a ditch here is the raised part here. Yeah, great question. Skip back over. All right, and I see one last question. Is there a tutorial on undoing stitches? I will let our team know that there is interest in this, so that we can find a solution here. Make one. I'll put in a request. We'll see what we can do, because that's a really useful skill to have. So thank you for asking. I'll make sure our team sees that. Yeah, but I think, oh, Jaja, did you have something?
No, I just saw the yes, please.
Oh,
yeah.
Awesome. Yes, the happy mistakes tutorials. I like that. Yes. I think that mistakes are a very welcome part of knitting. They're a great opportunity to learn. They're a great opportunity to understand how stitches come to be, how different stitches work together. And mistakes happen, and that's what makes hand knit things so beautiful, is that no one else made that specific mistake. So embrace it, embrace the mistake rib. It's all part of the process. But
and I to add, just personally, as I feel like as I became a better knitter over time was by making a bunch of mistakes.
Yes.
And the most useful thing you can learn is how to identify them and how to fix them. So
yes.
until we have a tutorial, I recommend that one-on-one so we can
yes.
help you with that specific, whatever specifically you might have messed up with.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think that about does it for our Zoom today. Thank you all for watching along with us, knitting along with us, learning to knit with us, trusting us for this new chapter for you. I did want to mention that our kits, this is some exciting news, will be on sale starting tomorrow. So if you're interested in picking one up for you or a gift for someone or knitting another cowl, keep an eye out for that tomorrow. That's very exciting. We'll have a link in the chat for that if you wanted to bookmark that link. But yeah, very exciting.
And also, if you want to be the first to know when this video goes live, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, and it'll alert you as soon as the video is uploaded.
Yep. We'll have the full recording with timestamps so you can go reference exactly what you needed. And another fun part of knitting is seeing what other people are knitting. So we encourage you to follow us if you aren't already on Instagram at Purl Soho. We'll have a link in the chat for that as well. Follow us, see what people are knitting, share your projects. It's always fun to see.
We love to see it all. So tag, share.
Yeah. Gabriella mentioned where you can find us, customer service at purlsoho.com. Schedule a one-on-one help session with us. We'll be there with you and knit with you every step of the way. And
if you have specific project questions from our website, you can just leave a comment and we go over those every day and we will respond to you with an answer.
Yeah, it's a great place to see what other knitters have asked too about the same project, and maybe your question has an answer or a similar answer that's helpful too. So yeah, but thank you all for joining us. Thank you for knitting with us and Zooming with us. We're really excited for you to begin to knit. It's a great hobby to have, and happy knitting and happy fall.
Yeah, happy
Take-
knitting.
Take care,
Bye.
everybody.